In September 2021, I had no idea who I was. I knew who I wasn't, recently discovering that a career path in computer science was not something I could tolerate for the rest of my life, but I was at a loss as to what I wanted to do instead. I'd been creating animated short films in my spare time and decided to follow this as a career, beginning a degree in visual effects and motion graphics at Brunel University, London. But I wasn't certain I was actually cut out for a life in the arts, having been an academic student and being told I had a scientific mind for the majority of my life. Receiving the RTS bursary after sending samples of my work and having interviews was a huge confidence boost, as this was the first time I'd been told by someone other than my family that my work was genuinely impressive and something I could develop into a career. Being part of industry events and listening to people I've seen so often on the TV talking to me was a bizarre experience that did leave me often feeling a little out of place, but there was always this assertion to fall back on that these people who know the industry better than anyone else believed in me. My university life began with a turn of graphic design, which included illustration, typography, and photography. This originally seemed a little strange to include in a visual effects degree, but studying this topic helped me develop the eye of a cinematographer and to consider laying out elements in a neat grid rather than eyeballing arrangements of elements. I began to really enjoy the catharsis of fitting elements neatly into a grid layout, and the process of creating imagery went from something that seemed to be a knack or an intuition to a logical and methodical exercise like a puzzle. This was a big discovery for me, as I began to consider how I could break down any creative activity into methodical steps to utilise the more comfortable mathematical style of thinking I was used to. I'm proud of a lot of my work that resulted from this, particularly my photography and digital illustration work, as this was a completely new skill set for me and I produced close to professional results. But not all of my work was a success. I found that I became too attached to the solutions to these puzzles I played out, and didn't take a second look at the work to see if it was actually visually appealing. Even if something fits a perfect grid, it may still look horrible, and learning to throw the ideas I worked so hard on in the bin was a difficult but crucial skill to develop. The second term is where I started developing my actual visual effects work, with modules in 3D modelling and texturing, as well as more graphic design principles and video production. The lessons I learned from my first term really paid off for these modules, as I started receiving the highest grades I'd ever gotten in a year, and more importantly, started producing the most clean and refined work I'd ever made. My video projects in particular are a great example of this, producing 2 films for the term, one featuring a fully CG animated car interacting with a real environment, and one featuring a man arguing with his own reflection, both making heavy use of visual effects. On the CGI side, I learned some really important modelling techniques, such as Boolean modelling, topology correction, and also beginning to use a completely different software package, Maya. My work was quite technically proficient as a result, but I made another mistake of being overly ambitious with my selection of ideas, as I tried to make a stadium for my final project, and it was far too much work for the deadline of just a few weeks, which meant my submission was a little rough around the edges, literally. Using examples of my year's work, as well as some crucial advice from the university careers team, I was able to secure a summer internship at Peerless Camera Company, a visual effects studio located in Covent Garden, London, where I was able to apply my trade on genuine television shows. My CGI work will be featured on the Sky Atlantic show Gangs of London, which unfortunately I can't show any footage of yet, as well as HBO's House of the Dragon, which I'm on the official credits for. Most importantly, however, I was also in charge of admin tasks and the screenings of all shots sent through by artists at the studio, which meant I was able to sit in as the supervisors reviewed each shot, and that helped me develop my critical eye for visual effects. This meant that I was able to pick up on the most common mistakes and be able to avoid them in my own work in the future. It's been a very eventful and productive year for me, and one which has finally convinced me that I do have the potential and the ability to make it in this highly competitive industry, but there's a lot of work still to go. I'm extremely grateful to the RTS for giving me that first shred of belief to begin to explore my artistic and creative side in a professional sense.